Hey there, listeners, and welcome to Project Zero, where we hear about the journeys of some of the best project leaders in the game. My name is Alex Tuck, and I am the host. Today, I'm here with my good friend and CEO of Tech Ed Productions, Ed Rios. Welcome to the podcast, Ed.
Thanks, Alex. Glad to be here.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear about
Well,
your Project Zero.
my name is Eduardo Rios. I go by Ed. I started project management in 1997. I was tapped on the shoulder. I was in technology and I was a technical manager, managed the LAN group for a company called Citibank. And got tapped on the shoulder to head a project called Y2K for Citibank's call centers and for North America. And so there was 3 other projects around the US that I worked with. We had the monumental task of getting ready for Y2K. That was my first time ever experiencing the word project manager. And it started me on this journey, which has been incredible. It's gotten me where I am today. In about 2004, I moved into program management and was introduced to my other passion with project management, which is enterprise resource planning. The big one was SAP. And of course, I was working with some IBM folks and some IBM partners implementing SAP. Those of you who've been on those type of projects know how grueling those can be, especially around 2005, 2006, 2007 timeframe. They were huge monoliths, multi-year projects. I got hired by Microsoft a lot because of my SAP experience. They had an ERP product called Microsoft Dynamics 365 or Microsoft Dynamics. Back then it was AX, but they had several other flavors of it because they'd acquired several companies. I was hired as a principal, so I went in, did project management, program management, worked on a lot of rescues of projects. But 2016 or so, started transitioning into solution architecture, learned a lot, stayed in the ERP space. I really worked with Microsoft Dynamics the whole time I was there and retired in 2019. I was on the road Monday, back home Thursday. And for all those years at Microsoft, I was pretty much done traveling. So I got off that train, and after a few months, I was also a LinkedIn champion, but I had a huge network because I did a lot of tech conferences for Microsoft and representing Microsoft Dynamics, doing project management type sessions and stuff. I linked into many, many, many people. Within a few months, I had people calling me saying, "Hey, can you help us with this? Do you still do this?" And so I started up Tech Ed Productions, LLC, my company. Started with just me. I was just going in and I was doing more management consulting, sitting with the customers and looking at how they structured the project delivery. A lot of these ended up becoming rescues because they either fired their partner or they were in a place where things weren't working right, and I had to come in and help give them a path forward. As an outside person, I could come in objectively and really lay out a solution. So did that and continued to do that through COVID. We never stopped. ERPs were in the cloud, especially Dynamics 365. There was no reason to be on site anywhere. So we continued, and companies still had to upgrade their systems. I worked through COVID and continued to do that today. Now I have about 12 people that work for me, and I still get in and do project management from time to time. I still enjoy it. I do a lot more solution architecture work, but I really stay on the outside working, talking to companies, getting more clients, helping out. We specialize in rescues. We've done a bunch of them, and the people I have are very seasoned. They all jump in, and I always call us the expendables because we're a little bit older, but we know our stuff and we can go through and get the job done. We have a good time. And that's really about me.
That's awesome, Ed. I love it. I love that arc, that career arc. That part of the show is just showing folks like, hey, you
Yeah.
might not be in project management yet. Here's how you can get into it. Or you might be in project management now. Here's what you could do after that.
It's a crazy role because it continually evolves. And so you make it what you need to make it. And it's always something that's foundational. So no matter what you get into, if you've got those project management skills, they're going to help you in whatever role you do. It's a way to get from point A to point B, the start to the finish. And that's why I love it.
Love it. Love it. You alluded to this at the beginning. You started as a project manager. How did you decide, hey, I'm going to get into project management?
That is the most hilarious story. So I usually tell it over a beer because it gets crazy. I was working at Citibank. I was a technical guy, did land administration back in the days when that was a thing. This is 1996, 97. Everybody was starting to talk about Y2K, but it was just mumblings in the IT community. Wasn't even really a deal. Then in 1997, Citibank started the initiative of Y2K preparedness. And they were just picking people. And I still think my director at that time was the one who put me up to it. I'm glad he did because I'm here. But I got tapped on the shoulder And basically they said, we want you to be the project management for North American call centers. You're going to be doing the Southwest, because I was in San Antonio. There was a big call center outside of town that I was managing the network in. They tapped me and they sent me to a week-long PMP boot camp in New York City. We go to New York all the time because I'd been working for Citibank for a few years, and we went out there for different meetings and things. And I loved going to New York. So I was like, all right, cool. I get to spend a week in New York. I go to this boot camp and they're going through things. We're doing projects. And I mean, it's just frantic for a week going through everything. I don't know if I retained anything, but I had fun. I had good food, which is always important. I got out of that, came back, and the other people who were project managing the rest of the regions of the United States all put things together. And we had a meeting and said, all right, we're going to have our first planning meeting. We got to figure out, how do we get our regions ready for Y2K? What needs to happen from a call center perspective? How do we collaborate with the other entities, with the rest of corporate, making sure that IT is ready for this event? I was always behind because I had nothing, no foundation. I had over 200 people that I was managing. The first thing they said was, we need to put together a project schedule. I did that with 15 tasks in a boot camp. So yeah, I'm ready. And that was probably the biggest challenge for me, was trying to figure out what is work and what is a work package. And how do I say this has to be done in X number of whatevers? And I could not put the pieces together. So I was constantly looking over somebody's shoulder, one of my colleagues, and going, how did you get this initial preparedness stuff done? How did you get, making the remediation done? I would look at their task and I would just copy their stuff because I had no clue. I was trying to figure it out. I knew land administration and I could get that section done and get that ready for Y2K because I knew what needed to happen there. But when you're talking about a call center, I knew people took calls, but I knew the back end stuff, the software that we were using, how we had things structured. But with the hardware that supported that, the business part was really the part that we had to get ready for. What do we need to do from that perspective? So I made every mistake a rookie could make. And it was on a major project. So thank goodness, because I just fell forward. I was always the one who was right 5 minutes before, still trying to update my project schedule, still trying to go through everything. I was missing things. People would say, did you remember this? I'm like, I did now. And then I'd add it in. It was crazy. It was nuts. I didn't really get the whole thing with risks and issues. Luckily, things were moving at such a fast pace. Those 3 years were like a blur getting up to Y2K. So when they said, did you log this as an issue for your site? Because this was an issue at all the rest of our sites. I'm like, I think I did, but I think it's open on my screen. I haven't submitted it. Yeah. It was crazy. I didn't really understand. Now that you log the issue, you've got to resolve the issue. As the PM, you have to lead that resolution. You have to direct people. You may not know the answer. You don't need to know the answer. You just know that you need to get to an answer. Who do you need to bring in? Who do you need to talk to? All of these things I was learning on the fly. There wasn't really a mentor. The other project managers were in different regions of the country. So I would constantly be calling them and talking to them and asking them, but some of them were making it up too, and so it was kind of funny. I really didn't get any mentoring. I remember Deadly Squat from my boot camp. One thing that came out of it is I got to use a program called Microsoft Project 95. So that really shows you where I'm coming from here. At that point, I started to understand the things that you can do in project are actually pretty cool because you can relate things. I had no concept of dependencies. I had a dependency until finally said, don't you have to do that before you do this? If you just enter something in this column and enter that number of that task, you actually will connect them. And it was like a light bulb went off. And it was a new toy I had found, and I'm 3 months away from Y2K. This is how bad it was. Finding anything that I could grasp then. My director for Christmas, right before Y2K, the year before, gave me a Microsoft project. I think we had moved to 97 by then. There was an interim. He gave me a handbook of Microsoft project. And I was like, oh my gosh, these exist. I'm going through it. I'm looking, I'm like, I didn't know that. I didn't know that. So it actually spurred me to learn the tool, which helped me later on down the road. The biggest thing was understanding what it means to manage work. And if you don't understand that, you're always going to fail as a project manager because everything revolves around it, whether it's a dependency, whether it's an issue, whether it's a risk, whether it's a time constraint, whether it's something that is a key milestone in your project that you have to track progress with. All of those things are related to a work package or work, whatever you want to call it. That was probably the toughest lesson. That was the craziest 3 years. Y2K was a non-issue for everybody, pretty much. I just remember after that going, what do I do now? Because I didn't even know what to do after this.
Yeah.
And luckily I stayed in project management. And then I started reading and started learning. I had this wealth of art experience that I was able to relate things that I was reading. I got better and better as I went along. But yeah, that was just crazy.
What you described is frankly what I think every single one of us has gone through at some point, especially the junior project manager or someone new to the practice. Like one, you're very insecure about
Yeah.
just everything. You're not supposed to know everything, but you're supposed to know about everything. Managing a risk or an issue, you just think, hey, I'm going to put it on this board. I'm going to ask people questions and then it's just going to get fixed. And it's not. It's your job.
100%. Yeah, 100%. One of the key things, if you don't know the work,
Yeah.
you don't have to know how to do the work, how the work gets done. But if you don't know the work, you can't manage your stakeholders. When we had these, it became biweekly and then it was weekly. We had our big stakeholder meetings where you have all the directors from all of the call centers all on this call asking for how's my call center doing. Luckily, I was always third or fourth. So I was toward the end of my report out and I would just be adding what they said, adding what they said, adding what they said, because I was like, I don't know that. How come I don't know that? What do I need to do to get to know that? I started asking those questions so that then I could say, okay, then I need to have something in there that talks about this. It was very ad hoc PMing, but I learned quickly and I learned because I had to. And you only have these 1 week or 2 week time frames before you have to report out on a call that has 100 people on it. And a lot of them are a higher pay grade than you. And you're just trying to keep your head above water. It was crazy, but I look back at it now and it's a warped fun.
That's type 2 fun, right, Ed?
Yes.
It's really, really hard thinking back. Mine was the same way. My big project was a $250 million implementation, health and human services implementation, Obamacare. Same idea. It's just like you're managing 250 people plus the state and all these other stakeholders. You don't know what the heck you're doing, really. And so you're making up while you're doing it. I was very bored after that for a while because I was just like, none of this is really hard. We were doing hard work, but it wasn't that challenging from a project management perspective. I'm sure you went through that too. And then you found your niche, right?
Looking back on it, and there's always perspective. Being tapped for that changed my life.
Yeah.
I used many curse words during those 3 years that described that time. But looking back on it, I learned so much in such a short period of time just because of the demands that were required during that time, because there was so much uncertainty. And it wasn't just because it was limited to one company. This was a global thing. Everybody was worried, are the ATMs going to work? When it came to banking and everything, you're talking about people's money. There was such an intensity to get that done. I don't think I ever slowed down to walk because it was always a race. And we were wondering if we were behind other banks. And so looking back on that, that was the best training ground for me, because even though I made every mistake possible, I was able to recover. I was able to keep moving because we had to move forward. We had to get to that end state. I think I breathed a sigh of relief. So I took 2 or 3 weeks off in February 2000 because, man, I was done. I was done.
Yeah.
But it was good.
A common thread across most of the folks that I have on this show are that they were put into positions of power in project management opportunities. They were not prepared for what they were about to experience, but they came out on the other side and decided they were going to make that their career. Exactly. And everything else seemed easier after that.
Project Zero was amazing because, I was definitely able to go through and no other project equaled that. Then I was also armed with knowledge, a forced maturity or something. But I learned a lot quickly and I had to. But I liked it. Maybe I was a glutton for punishment.
It's like, oh, wow, I used to do 100-hour weeks. I only work 45 now. Out of all of those skills that you had to learn or maybe you lacked during that period, what do you think is the most important for project managers to have?
I've come to really believe they build on each other. And so I think some very foundational skills that you have to have as a PM. You have to have a sense of organization. I say that because my wife will tell you that when I'm not a project manager, I'm the most disorganized person in the world. But when I'm game on, I have everything organized. I know what comes before what. I can visualize this. And that's, of course, has come over years and years and loss of hair for many years. That experience really builds. So I think that the number one skill you have to have is a sense of organization. The number two thing that you have to have is leadership. You can be as organized as possible, but if you really are not a leader, what are you going to do with that? You're the cheerleader for the effort. You're the therapist for the effort. You're everything. You're the driver for the effort. So all of these things, not only do they require you to have a sense of organization, but they require you to be a leader. People expect it because guess what? You're the answer man. And your stakeholders, anybody who wants to know anything, if they want the right answer, they want to come to you. And
Yep.
you've got to be ready to give them that. Those are really the two things that are foundational. When you think of today's environment with AI playing roles more and more into all these different types of things, that type of experience or that type of skill is still going to be a little bit slower for AI to come in and take over because
Mhm.
you have to put a sense of perspective with your experience on either of those two. Organization for one project is very different with organization on another project. Your leadership style has some nuance in it because your audience is different. You may have stakeholders that want this and want that, and you may have stakeholders who want you to tell them a story. Those two things are almost chameleon-like abilities that I think it's going to be a while before AI can tackle those. I'm not going to say it's not going to happen because things get smarter and smarter and who knows, but you're still going to need people to facilitate. You're still going to need people to drive. The key thing there is what do you drive? When do you drive? When do you facilitate?
Yeah.
How do you connect? Those are some things that are very learned skills that come with experience.
Ed, it's so funny you said, if you ask my wife, she would tell you that I'm not organized in real life. I would say the majority of really good PMs that I know, they, and myself included with this, incredibly disorganized in our home life, unless it's my job. If I'm going on vacation, you better believe I've got the spreadsheet, I've got all the things, we have stuff in ClickUp, the whole list, everything.
Yeah,
But when it comes to day-to-day stuff, my wife is completely in charge. She's the PM of the house.
I'm with you, man. That's my wife too. I
Yeah.
willingly surrender that to her. It's funny you say that because we just took a family trip. My youngest daughter graduated high school in May, and we just took a family trip to Italy in June.
Fun.
I had a 4-page itinerary that I had planned out and did everything. And my kids are used to that. They would get this printout of, hey, here's where we're going to be, when we're going to be, you need to be here, you need to be here. I had a 16-year-old and a 19-year-old. So they're older, but they're teenagers and they like sleep. I had things that we had planned and things that we had agreed because I asked before doing anything. The fact that I gave them this whole itinerary printed out, that was 4 pages, of course, the girls do the eye roll.
Yeah.
But then they appreciated it because they were able to check and see, what do we got tomorrow? When do we got? There's
Yep.
no mystery here. It's an ongoing thing. And now I can, as a superpower, turn them on when they need to in my personal life, but then let my wife handle the rest.
Yeah, but you have to have that recharge time because if you're always that person, you're never going to recover, right? It's a lot. It's very
Yes.
stressful to be a project
Yes.
manager. It's a lot of pressure.
It-
So next question, how do you think AI is going to impact project management over the next, let's say 5 years, maybe decade?
In my opinion, AI is here to stay. We're going to have to learn to live with it. If you haven't embraced it yet, you need to embrace it because otherwise you're going to be left behind. From the perspective of project management, AI is going to help with a lot of the research that needs to be done. AI is going to help with a lot of the information that you need to follow a direction for how you deliver your project. If it's a technical project or a business project, you're going to be able to leverage AI to really get information for how you build out your schedule. I use it all the time. I love it. It's phenomenal. For me, I would fall quickly behind because it shortened some of the time I need for some of my project prep. The fact that AI can generate a slide deck based on all of the subject matter and everything, and then you just have to go and tweak it, correct it, enhance it. But you've already got something you're working from. These are great lifts because, as you know, communication is one of our paramount skills that we have to have. So if you communicate through PowerPoints or Word documents or whatever, you got to be able to communicate effectively. I was not always the grammar king or spell check king. Now I've got tools that are AI related that will check my grammar, check my spell check. And I'll go, oh yeah, actually that does sound right. It makes you communicate more effectively, more professionally. You've got to tailor it to your audience. AI is going to continue to make inroads in every aspect of business, every aspect of technology. You need to jump on the bandwagon if you're not on it and move further into it if you are, because there's a lot of potential out there. I know a lot of people aren't fans. I'm a fan. I like to try and work smarter, and that helps me to work smarter. I don't always trust everything that comes out of AI. So I use 5 different AI tools and I kind of balance all between them and say, okay, actually, y'all are all saying the same thing. But then I still really go with my gut on things until AI gets refined enough to really be a lot more trustworthy. I take everything with a grain of salt, but it gives me perspectives and things to think about that I may not have thought about previously. So I always say it enhances all of that from the work of a PM to how I think, to how I deliver, questions that I never thought about asking, make sure that I've got everything that I need to account for. It's a tool like anything else. How you use it and benefit from it is up to the individual.
Frankly, I don't think AI is any more wrong than humans are. The thing I tell people is AI is an overconfident person that may or may not be right. They say it so confidently that you believe that they're right. And so you just have to be
Well,
cautious of that, right?
several of the tools now offer references and they
Mhm.
offer reference links. I always go to the reference links, especially if I have something in question, but I always look at where they're pulling from because if they're pulling from a website that maybe has less credibility than others, then I may not use that. I may not use that little bit of information, especially if it's only in one AI response.
I saw something that said 40% of all ChatGPT responses are coming from Reddit. That could just be completely fake. But if that's even close to true, holy moly, that's crazy. One thing you
Yep.
said that I had never thought of this use case, every project's different. And especially in our line of work, we have consultants that our clients hire us for very specific expertise. We're coming in and we're putting a PM on a Dynamics project. They know they're getting that skill set right away. But if you have more of a generalist PM and they need to roll out some new tool, what a great idea to like ask ChatGPT, hey, help me think about this project plan and help me get up to
Yeah.
speed on the technical details of this project and then run with that. I had
Yeah.
never thought of that.
I always hear people say, you don't need to know what is necessary from a technical skill set or a deep business skill set to manage a project.
Yeah.
But you need to understand how to manage the work. From a conceptual perspective, you need to really understand what do I need to know about this software, technology, process, whatever it is.
Mhm.
Having AI as your tutor to give you the 10,000 or 30,000 or 40,000 foot view of something is helpful because then you go, oh, that's what they're doing. And then you can dive in. And then when they're giving you the task groups and all the different things that you need to do to build out a schedule and how the process works to get it implemented, it helps you have a grounding. And like I said, then you're open to learning if you want to, as much as you want with the people that are doing it.
You may, to use an example from your world, you're an ERP expert. You
Yeah.
might specialize in Dynamics, but if you need to get caught up on the new SAP modules or whatever else, you might be able to use ChatGPT to catch you up quickly.
We do have NetSuite
Yep.
customers, and we actually have some projects where we integrate with SAP. They all are business systems. So they're all based on business process principles. So when you understand business processes, the flavor, you just have to get used to the flavor. That
Yep.
helps out a lot. That's what I find very fortunate in my space is that I can jump over to another platform and quickly understand where's the chart of accounts? How do we do that? Okay, you just, I get it now. We're good. It's a really cool space to be in, and I enjoy it. Keeps me busy, keeps my brain working.
Love it. Love it. As you progress through your career, the definition of success changes quite a bit, right? As a PM, tell us what your definition of success was back then, maybe on Project Zero versus what it is today as a project manager.
It's funny because at Project Zero, there was no specific criteria other than the financial systems had to work. That was it. As I evolved and learned, I started having conversations with clients, with stakeholders, and just saying on day one, when we're live, what does success look like to you? Just having that frank conversation. Sometimes it was in the office, sometimes it was after hours at a dinner, but you got to have that rapport with your stakeholders and understand from their context, what does success look like? And so as I matured and learned and went through up to today, anytime we engage with a new client, that's one of the first things we ask them, what are you looking to get out of this? What do you envision 6 months from now when we wrap up this or whatever that timeline is? If you don't have that somewhere on your radar and you're not driving to that point, you may deliver something that is, even though it was a successful delivery, it's not a successful implementation to that customer. For me now, I really gauge things on talking to the stakeholders and saying, what are you really trying to do? What's the change you want to see happen here? I want to make sure we account for that.
Right.
It's always a good conversation to have.
One more question before we wrap
Sure.
up here. I'm just curious if you were to go back and talk to younger Ed, or maybe you're talking to a PM that's just getting started, what's that one piece of advice that you would give them about being a good project manager?
Go talk to the people that need to do the work and just listen to them. You're new. You don't know any of this stuff. Go sit with a call center person, get on the guest headset and listen to their day in the life and understand the things that they need to do, the systems that they need to just go listen. Because sometimes that gives you the best understanding of how you're going to manage the work that needs to happen to make sure that if they're going to be doing that same thing at a time after your project, that they can still do those things. And for you to understand that gives you a sense of, okay, so they have to talk to a customer, log all the information, set up any activities or actions that they want to do in their account and wish them a happy day. You have to listen. I was too much of just trying to keep up. So I didn't do a lot of listening. That's a great skill. That's another one of those great skills that PMs need to have. As I went through that and as I matured and did more and more projects, I started to sit back in my chair and just listen to the mechanics of things, listen to when you're in stakeholder meetings, listening to the politics that come out, understanding where you have to navigate and what you need to do. Who's somebody that you have to make sure always gets the information as opposed to this guy just wants to read an email. That stakeholder management stuff is amazing for a project manager, but it starts with listening. I would tell myself, shut up and listen.
Yeah. It's so true. It's so true as a PM. A lot of times you just need to shut up and listen.
Just listen.
All right, Ed. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Alex. This has been
how should people
wonderful.
connect with you?
You can get in touch with me on LinkedIn, Eduardo Rios. You can find me under Tech Ed Productions. I'll have my email address here. You'll be able to grab that. If you have questions, anything, comments, anything, reach out. I like to connect with folks. So if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, that's a great place. Pretty much all of my business since I left Microsoft has come through LinkedIn because of the relationships I've established. I'm always looking at building my network, and I met you, Alex, through LinkedIn, and I'm very grateful for that. Thank you for the opportunity to be on Project Zero. I hope somebody got something out of it.
Thank you so much for joining me, Ed. And thanks to all of you who listened to us here at Project Zero this week. Be sure to subscribe to Project Zero wherever you get your podcasts, and we'll catch you next time with another great project leader story.